jurisdiction to prosecute the perpetrators. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you're familiar with the Pinochet case in Chile, it's the same principle. It's called universal jurisdiction. Now, there's been a lot of movement with this case in the last couple of years. So when I was down there in 2006, in June of 2006, an investigative commission came from Spain to Guatemala to investigate the genocide. And the accused placed various amparos, I don't know how to appeals in the Guatemalan courts to try and block the investigation. But the investigation continued, and in the fall of 2006, international arrest warrants were sent from Spain for 8 men, including Romeo Lucas Garcia and the members of his military high command. And I don't think I mentioned at this point, but all of the 8 that are accused that have international arrest warrants are all graduates of the School of the Americas. Wow. Now, absent from the list was the biggest bad guy of them all, Rios Montt. And that's because he is still an extremely powerful political figure in Guatemala, and unfortunately I don't have time to get into more about how Rios Montt wields his power in very ugly ways. But I just wanted to mention 2 more things, and that is when Judy first asked me to give this talk, which was, I guess, about 10 days ago, I agreed, and I thought about it for a minute, thinking that I would just kind of give the same talk that I usually give. But actually, it has been a historic week in Guatemala. For the first time ever, war survivors have given public testimony about the genocide committed against my people in a Guatemala court. It's really exciting. It is truly a historic moment. I'm not going to get into all the legal part of things, but it's a Guatemalan judge who has agreed to take testimony on behalf of the Spanish case. So there are 29 eyewitnesses and experts scheduled to testify between last April 17th and May 6th. So please, this is a great time to get involved, to stay updated. It's truly a historic moment. And I'm just going to close with an anecdote. There were times when I was down there where I didn't doubt, but I would sometimes question, okay, so say these cases go through, and say Rios Montt goes to jail. And although he's a very powerful, symbolic figure, he's only one man. And how are things really going to change? And all of those questions just absolutely evaporated for me in a 30-second moment that I have that I want to share with you. When the arrest warrants came out, Rios Montt was left off the list. And there was a huge march. The AJR organized a huge march in Guatemala City to protest the fact that Rios Montt was left off the list. And they marched down the Sexta Avenida, the 6th Avenue, which is a main thoroughfare in Guatemala City. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people, and they blocked traffic in the heart of the city for several hours. And I'm marching with my compañeros, and I'm marching next to a man named Juan. And Juan is a survivor of the massacre in Rancho Piluco. He had been tortured in a military base in Guatemala for several months. And just to give you a sense of Juan, Juan is very small in stature, and he has a lot of fear. I don't like to use PTSD because I think that's a really clinical term, but he visibly retains so much fear. Every time we're talking about the case, his voice turns, and his eyes kind of dart around. And I'm marching next to Juan, and he's carrying this sign, although he's carrying a big one. And there's several different chants that are going on. So one of them is, ¿Qué queremos? And the response is, Justicia, what do we want? Justice. And then the one that follows that is, ¿Quién falta? Or who's missing, as in who is left off the list, because Rios Montt there was not an international arrest warrant issued for Rios Montt. ¿Quién falta? And the response was, Rios Montt. So I'm marching next to Juan, and Juan is screaming at the top of his lungs, ¿Quién falta? Rios Montt! ¿Quién falta? Rios Montt! And watching Juan, I will never again doubt this process. That scream came from a place inside him. I don't know where it came from the souls of his entire family that had been killed, from a place inside him that has obviously been buried for the last 25 years and is only now starting to surface. And I don't know, I like to mention that because I think that however the cases proceed, And whether or not they go behind bars in their lifetimes or in the lifetimes of the survivors, it's so much bigger than that. This is about not being silenced, it's about reclaiming your dignity, and in the memory of Havarti, it's about letting the truth be known. So, thank you so much. I wish I could talk longer. I have so much more to say. There are many different ways that you can get involved. NISGUA, we have an office in Guatemala City and a brand new office in the East Bay in downtown Oakland. We have a speakers tour that is coming, that I've been working really hard on. It's coming to San Francisco from May 9th to the 13th, talking about open pit mining in Guatemala. And I'll cut it there, but please come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to get you all involved, and thank you so much for the invitation. That's been struggling to have rule of law and have democracy, and these efforts have been met with violent repression after violent repression after violent repression since, for 500 years. So the political, I'd just like to mention that and say that the political space that's needed to bring these cases before domestic courts is really narrow and it's really dangerous. And Havarti's assassination is a testament to that we're here tonight. Instead of celebrating the release of the report, although we're doing that too, we're commemorating his assassination. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I don't want to confuse you. There are two legal cases that are going on. So the case that I was just talking about is a case that's happening within the Guatemala National Courts, and as I said, is struggling with pervasive impunity. The other case is a case that's being brought by the Spanish National Courts, that is courts in Spain. And you might be asking, with very good reason, why courts in Spain can come to Guatemala and try crimes that happen within Guatemalans' own sovereign borders. And that's a really good question. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'll do my best to answer it. In international law, there is a principle called universal jurisdiction. Universal jurisdiction comes from the idea that there are some crimes that are so grave, they are offenses against all of humanity. So genocide, the attempted extermination